I pulled up the gravel and froze. There was a brand new white gate bolted into concrete across the only road I'd ever used to get to my place, and two shiny signs that weren't there yesterday, one saying private community toll $25 and the other screaming in all caps about trespassers. Right then I felt something hot and ridiculous rise in my chest, like someone trying to sell me my own shoes and collect on them. So I killed the truck, rolled down the window, and watched a man in a neon vest hop up from a folding chair with a clipboard like he owned the sunrise. I said morning because what else do you say? He said morning, sir, and tried to look official. Badge on his chest said Canyon Heights. Security already grated on me. He told me I had to pay the toll to pass. I pointed back down the road and said slow. That road leads to my ranch. It's been in my family since Grover Cleveland was president. He read some paper and smiled like a man reading a menu that didn't include what I wanted. You can appeal, he said, and meant it. That word appeal felt like a joke sent through the mail by people who'd never smelled hay. So I left. I didn't stomp or threaten. I put the truck in reverse, backed down, and parked on the county road. I sat there, listened to gravel settle, and reached up to the rack. Old Mossberg 5.90, same holster my dad had mounted years ago. I checked the chamber, 2 rounds legal, and thought, this is stupid, but I'm not the stupid one. I drove back. Brian the guard was still standing with his phone. I rolled down the window and said, once quiet, move off my property. He raised his clipboard like a shield. I racked the slide. He dropped the clipboard and scrambled. I got out, aimed low, and with one sharp shot, the lock exploded metal and sparks and a satisfying crunch, and the gate swung open under its own weight. I drove through, hammered a sign into the ground next to my old stone boundary private land. Stay out. Access by court order only. You might think that was the end. It wasn't. That same afternoon, an envelope appeared in my mailbox, Cale County Civil Court, stamped on the corner. They accused me of brandishing a firearm, threatening a licensed guard, destroying community property, and trespassing. They wanted damages, an injunction, and a restraining order. I laughed, then called Gina Alvarez land lawyer, not the smiley kind, the get things done kind. She asked me to read the complaint out loud. I did. She whistled quietly. They're claiming your road is part of their internal street plan, she said. That's reckless. Then I rang Tom Randall, the surveyor. He drove out with his GPS and a bundle of maps, and we spread everything on my kitchen island, my deed, a 1937 servitude, Grant County aerial photos, and the HOA's glossy map. Side by side, you could see the trick someone had redrawn the boundary, shifted lines by about 70 feet, and relabeled Harper Road as Canyon Ridgeway, curving conveniently to the gate. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Deputy Jack Morris from the sheriff's office listened, then said, we got their notice about a security installation, but no permit, no court order, nothing. He went quiet for a second, and then, Clint, that looks illegal as hell. 2 weeks later, Tom called, voice tight. The revised map was signed by Miller, a retired county surveyor who'd been out of the office for 2 years before Canyon Heights started. The signature had a spring date. Smells like forgery, Jack said. My stomach tightened in a way that has nothing to do with hunger. That night I found a flash drive in my mailbox with a sticky note for your lawyer friend. One grainy dash cam file, and my blood went cold. A white SUV, a contractor, and then my ear burned when I heard her voice. Karen Hale, president of the HOA, telling the contractor on camera, we've got an adjusted map. Get it up before that ranch guy figures it out. If he gets aggressive, that works in our favor. We accuse him of threatening staff. She looked straight at the camera and smiled like she'd planned a picnic. Gina called it what it was, premeditated abuse of process. Tom's GPS affidavit and the video were a bomb. We filed motion to dismiss counterclaims for fraud, defamation, interference with property rights. Meanwhile, I set more traps, trail cams, infrared solar satellite link. On the third night, the camera by the gate caught a black SUV with no plates and 2 figures fiddling with the hinge. One held bolt cutters. They left when the blinking red light caught their eye. I turned the footage over to Jack. He whistled and said, they're escalating. Then came Earl Moore, neighbor, half a mile north, hull of a man who smelled like diesel and stubbornness. He handed me a folder thicker than a Bible, letters, permits, and engineering report showing Canyon Heights had rerouted runoff into the Moore's cattle pond. Earl's wife got sick from the mold in the crawl space after their place flooded. They tried to buy me out last year, he said, face red. Then they flooded my land. That plus my gate incident painted a pattern, and patterns are what Gina eats for breakfast. She filed an amended complaint, including the moors. Within days, the sheriff opened an investigation. You start to see the shape. This wasn't about a toll or some neighborhood security. It was an attempt to consolidate land, reroute water, and worst of all, control a buried aquifer under the eastern ridge. I learned that from Reese Donnelly at the General Land Office. He cross-checked records and found a 1998 letter explicitly excluding my servitude from future incorporation because of water access. Someone was trying to grab control over water rights. Suddenly, the gate was less petty and more predatory. The developer West Ridge got wind and sued the HOA. Their buyer had walked away when the scandal hit the papers. A $12 million blow-up. Karen's little empire was collapsing inward. In court, Judge Jenkins read the emergency filings and evidence started piling like storm clouds, marked up Platt's dash cam audio of Karen admitting the planned contractors refusing work on record. The interim ruling froze the HOA's actions and referred the case to the DA for criminal review. The gate came down under county supervision 72 hours later, hauled off on a flatbed clang by clang. But of course Karen didn't stop. She filed a personal suit against me for emotional distress and armed intimidation, $250,000, and for a minute I thought, really, you want me to pay for defending what's mine? Gina grinned that dangerous grin lawyers get when someone reaches for the wrong end of the stick. She dug into my opponent's papers and found something better than a smoking gun. Karen owned major shares in a shell company that happened to build Canyon Heights. She wasn't a disgruntled neighbor, she was the developer hiding behind an HOA to do the dirty work. We followed money trails, subpoenaed emails that said things like, if we can keep him locked out until the city responds, he'll have to sue us. Public interest exploded. People started sending me letters. Old-timers, veterans, strangers, stories of rotten HOAs, fines, fence, battles, citizens driven from homes. A man in Alabama wrote about losing his house over a wheelchair ramp. Watching you fight gives me hope, he said. I read those letters under the barn light and felt something expand. This had become bigger than my road. It was about not letting people get steamrolled. At trial, evidence leaked. Reporters packed the hallway. Karen sat like a bird whose wings had been clipped, hair-perfect blazer, immaculate fear in the eyes. Gina moved through the courtroom like a woman who'd memorized every paragraph of truth. She played the dash cam audio where Karen said, "We'll accuse him of threatening staff." Tom's affidavit, the county records, the state land office letter about water access, they all lined up like dominoes. The judge found substantial evidence of fraud, conspiracy to falsify public records, and obstruction. 2 deputies led Karen out in cuffs. Someone dropped a notebook. The room smelled like coffee and justice. In the end, the HOA was dissolved, assets liquidated to pay damages, and the developer's deal with the REIT collapsed. Karen got sentenced years behind bars, her partner too. The county assessor who rubber-stamped the forged map got federal eyes on him. For me, the road stayed mine. I bolted Newgate's steel-tooth plate recognition cameras and painted a sign on cedar that reads "Private Road." Trespassers will be fed to the cows. It's a dumb joke, I know, but it makes the point. What did I learn? That paper looks official until someone proves it's fake. That power hides behind polite language, community safety adjusted maps, legal counsel, and tries to eat your life in small bites. That neighbors and strangers matter. Their letters, their testimony, their courage matter. That sometimes justice is slow, messy, and depends on stubborn people who won't back down. And mostly I learned to respect the past deeds recorded by handstone markers hammered into dirt generations ago, because those anchors matter when someone comes to redraw your history on a glossy brochure. So here's my question for you. If someone in your town started putting up gates and selling access to roads that had been there for 100 years, would you stand and fight, or would you step aside and call it progress? Tell me honestly, which is worse? A bully in a suit rewriting maps, or a judge too tired to look? Share a time you or someone you know got pushed by authority, and what happened. Tell the truth, even if it's messy. I'll read them. I want to know what you'd do if you woke up to find your life boxed in by someone else's signature.